In this problem, I'm given the height of a rocket in feet. T seconds after it is launched from 40 feet above the ground, and this is given by the equation h of t is equal to a negative 16t squared plus 80t plus 40, and I want to know how long it will take the rocket to hit the ground. Well, since h of t represents the height of the rocket above the ground, when it hits the ground, h of t is equal to 0. Therefore, I want to solve the equation 0 is equal to a negative 16t squared plus 80t plus 40. One way that I can solve this problem is to recognize that my three terms have a greatest common factor of negative 8. Therefore, I'm going to factor out a negative 8. This gives me a positive 2t squared minus 10t minus 5. We could check that by using the distributive property. Negative 8 times 2t squared is a negative 16t squared. Negative 8 times a negative 10t is a positive 80t. And negative 8 times a negative 5 is a positive 40. The next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to realize that I cannot factor my quadratic equation, so I'm going to use the quadratic formula. Before I do that, I'm going to divide both sides by a negative 8. 0 divided by a negative 8 is still 0, so I have 0 is equal to 2t squared minus 10t minus 5. You may recall that in the quadratic equation ax squared plus bx plus c, my solution to my quadratic equation can be given by the quadratic formula. In this case, since we are solving for t, the quadratic formula would be given by t is equal to the opposite of b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all over 2 times a. In this case, t is equal to the opposite of a negative 10, which is a positive 10, plus or minus the square root of a negative 10 squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. Now we just need to simplify the numerator and denominator. In the numerator, we have 10 plus or minus the square root of negative 10 squared, which is 100. And then we have 4 times 2, which is 8. So a negative 8 times a negative 5 is a positive 40, all over 4. This is equivalent to 10 plus or minus the square root of 140, all over 4. Taking this into my calculator and noting that I want t to be equal to a positive number, I get t to be approximately 5.5 seconds. We can check to see if this makes sense by plugging in 5.5, knowing that we'd have some rounding error. When I do that, I plug in h of 5.5, and I get negative 4, which means it really is below the ground. This gives me an approximation that 5.5 seconds is the correct answer.